the impact that the 17 game schedule is going to have on Hall of Fame, or the impact that it could potentially have on the Hall of Fame, because people are going to be playing more games now. You know what I'm saying? They're going to be playing more games. And with more games comes more statistics. And with more statistics comes inflated historical relevance, especially for offensive players. I mean, think about it. With one more game, there's no doubt about it, Adrian Peterson would have destroyed the single season record. He already rushed for 2,000 yards, but if he had another game, he would have had like maybe almost 2,200 yards. You know what I'm saying? Like touchdown records, receiving records, yardage records, interception rate, defense. Like all these different statistics are going to change, but most likely they will benefit the offense. There are some situations like maybe with sack numbers or tackles or interceptions or things like that where having another game could help a defensive player, like a guy who's one sack shy or half a sack shy of the single sack record, which I believe is going to go down. Maybe even it's going to go down soon. It's going to go down soon. Probably maybe this year or next year. In the next 2 to 3 years, I feel like now, especially that they have a 17-game season, it might actually go down this year. I would not be surprised if that record goes down this year. And that's another interesting topic of debate, like which records will fall next. As players play more games and the season gets longer, quarterbacks have more games to throw touchdowns and yards and completions. It's like at some point, I feel like the NFLPA and the Hall of Fame, like as a committee, needs to sit down and ask themselves, what are we going to do about these records? These numbers are going to become so inflated. I think that they need to propose some sort of way to standardize. That's what I want to say. Some sort of way to standardize the numbers, the records, because I think it's unfair that guys who played back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s in 12 games, and even guys who played under 14 games, are having their numbers compared to guys who played in now 16 games or now 17 games. And I also think that it's going to cause some issue when we get to some players who are fringe all Hall of Famers, or we'll say, well, look at their numbers. So-and-so has 60,000 plus passing yards and over 400 touchdowns and this many completions and this many this and this many that. And it's like, well, did they win? Were they leaders? Did they have rings? Or they were losers and they didn't know how to lead a team to victory and they have nothing to show for all of these accolades and accomplishments. Statistically, how can you say he belongs in the Hall of Fame next to this player who has championships, who has MVPs, who did change the game, who's unquestionably a Hall of Famer, but just because he played in a different era or there were less games or the rules were different, their numbers don't stack up. So basically, like if you have a 17-game schedule, right? Maybe basically you take 14 of those games and just take the best numbers from those 14 games. You have 3 games where you didn't play that well. Okay, you just throw those out and just take, okay, these are the best numbers. These are take all the touchdowns and yards and catches or rushes and everything, interceptions from those 14 games, and that will become the new metric, the new standard for how players will be evaluated. Or you would take those players who have those played under 14 games and 12 games, you would take their average and add those games to their stats. But I feel like that's a little bit of a reach, and that's kind of more like almost hypothetical, and there's no way to really say would they have continued to average those numbers over the course of 3 more games or 4 more games or however many more games, 5 more games, whatever it is. Because this way I feel like it makes it more comparable. You can really compare people's dominance in their era. I mean, it's almost like if the NBA all of a sudden in 2021 or 2022, right, next year, if they say, well, okay, we're going to have a 4-point line, and you get all these players like Stephen Curry and whoever else, you know, the beard and Trae Young and all these guys, they start shooting 3-pointers from Damian Lillard. They start shooting 4-pointers. It's like, well, obviously, yeah, they're going to be getting an extra point more than anybody before 2022 could ever have an opportunity to get. So clearly that will make their numbers look better. Like, everybody's getting judged the same way, but except everyone's not being judged the same way because some dudes had 5 more extra games or 4 more extra games or 2 more. So it's like everybody needs to have the same amount of games. Otherwise, I just feel like it's not fair to the older guys who laid the foundation for what it means to be a Hall of Famer and what it means to be great and to be dominant, to have their numbers look smaller in comparison to guys who just maybe weren't as dominant, but they just had more opportunities. I mean, I don't think that will ever come to pass. I don't think that's something I could ever see the NFL doing. But if I were the NFL, I would look into it just to kind of keep the continuity and the integrity of the game intact.
Puda, you the GOAT, boy.